Good evening and welcome to our comprehensive US election coverage. We bring you the latest from the key mayoral and gubernatorial races across the US. Contests that are shaping not only local governments but also may offer a barometer of where national politics may be heading. A big win for Democrats across the US with major victories in key mayoral and gubernatorial races that signal shifting voter sentiment ahead of the next national polls. In New York City, 34-year-old Zohran Mamdani, a Muslim and self-described democratic socialist, has made history, defeating former Governor Andrew Cuomo to become the city's first Muslim and youngest mayor in over a century. Mamdani ran an ambitious platform promising rent freezes, free public transit and universal childcare, capturing the imagination of younger and working-class voters. His win marks a generational and ideological shift in one of the world's most influential cities, though delivering on those sweeping promises will be an early test. A host of Democrat bigwigs, from Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton to key backer Alex Soros, congratulating Mamdani on his win. Meanwhile, in New Jersey, Democrat Mickey Sherrill is going to be the next governor, while in Virginia, Abigail Spanberger has been elected as the state's first female governor. Both significant milestones for their states and for women in leadership. Democrats also held key local positions in Pennsylvania and celebrated voter approval of California's Prop 50, redrawing congressional maps in their favor. Well, across races, cost of living, housing and public safety dominated voter concerns, while youth turnout and grassroots campaigns played a decisive role. Analysts say these results reflect growing appetite for pragmatic but people-focused leadership and could set the tone for national politics heading into 2026. For now, the message from voters is clear. They want bold solutions, inclusive governance, and leaders who can deliver change beyond rhetoric. Amid the big Democrat surge in the United States, Indians remained hawk-eyed on Indian-origin Democrat New York candidate Zohran Mamdani, who created history by becoming the first South Asian Muslim to win the polls. Here is the full report.
34-year-old Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani won New York City's mayoral race on Tuesday. His victory marks a rapid rise from a little-known state lawmaker to one of the most prominent figures in the Democratic Party.
Tonight, against all odds, we have grasped it. The future is in our hands. My friends, we have toppled a political dynasty.
Mamdani will become New York's first Muslim mayor, defeating former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who ran as an independent after losing the Democratic nomination. Cuomo spoke as Mamdani's win was announced.
Congratulations to Zohran Mamdani. No. Hey, that is not right, and that is not us. That is not us. Tonight was their night.
Mamdani pushed for progressive plans, from freezing rents on nearly 1 million apartments to making city buses free, in a race that served as an ideological and generational test with national implications. Since President Donald Trump's win last year, Democrats have found themselves locked out of power in Washington. But the trio of races gave the beleaguered Democrats a chance to try different strategies ahead of next year's midterms, when control of Congress is at stake. For Republicans, Tuesday's elections were a test of whether the voters who powered Trump's victory in 2024 will show up when he is not on the ballot. Trump remains unpopular, with 57% of Americans disapproving of his job performance, according to a Reuters poll. But Democrats aren't gaining ground, with voters evenly split on which party they'll support in 2026.
Joining us now, our Pramitpal Chaudhary, head of the India practice at the Eurasia Group, Meera Shankar, former ambassador to the United States, K.C. Singh, former diplomat and strategic affairs expert. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Ambassador Meera Shankar, does the resounding victory of Democrats across U.S. races show a strong discontent with Donald Trump?
Yes, it does. But, you know, the East Coast has always been leaning towards the Democrats. both the coastal areas, the West Coast, California, and the East Coast, they're more outward looking, and they are the liberal bastions. Middle America, the southern states, these are the states where the Republicans have a hold, and we have to wait and see. But in this election, I think the upset was really Zohran Mamdani's win against Andrew Cuomo, a veteran politician and former governor who is from the Democratic Party but ran as an independent after losing the primary. Uh, in Virginia, too, the Democrats managed to flip the election because there was a Republican governor and Abigail Spanberger defeated him. In New Jersey, there were already Democrats in power, holding power for 2 terms, but they've won an unprecedented 3rd term. Mamdani, of course, had a very progressive agenda and was backed by the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, including Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And this is one of the things which the Democrats have been divided about. You know, to what extent do they move leftward? A lot of the party has continued to want to be mainstream, you know, middle of the road. But Mamdani's win will push the party left of center to some extent. You
Right.
could see that his message resonated with people because the cost of living and affordability, these were the 2
Right.
key platforms on which he ran, and they resounded with people in New York, which has been facing a crisis of affordability with rising rents, rising grocery prices, and so on. So his agenda
Right.
of free bus rides, free childcare, rent freezes, and setting up grocery stores in what are called food desert areas resounded with the people. But now comes the hard part because his ability to implement this is not untrammeled. There's a legal framework within which he has to function. For instance, any tax changes require the
Okay.
proposals go from him, but they require approval from the assembly in the New York State Assembly and the governor.
Right.
So he'll have to work
Okay.
with them to see what he can do.
And if he's not successful, it'll become a major poll plank in the 2028 election as well. Ambassador Casey Singh, if I can come to you, what do you think is the big significance of Zohran Mamdani's win? He quoted Nehru in his winning speech, in his victory speech as well. This was a very tough election. This was a high-pitched election that was fought in New York. What does this say about his career going ahead? If he's successful, what could this mean for his rise in American politics?
I think firstly, we should stop calling him Indian Muslim. He's 50% Punjabi Hindu. His mother is a Punjabi Hindu. So he's not just a full-fledged Muslim in that sense. So he's by, the two religions he bridges in that. I think he is a distraction as I see it. Because Democrats have to make up their mind whether they adopt a centrist agenda, because they have to have an agenda which works all over US. New York is an aberration, it's different, it's a multiracial city. So what happens in New York or works in New York may or may not work, certainly will not work in Midwest or many of the Republican states. But I think it's important that even in Georgia, even in even the half-brother of J.D. Vance, has lost a mayor's seat. So there is a wave all across America. And the wave is against Trump, because Trump promised the people of America that he will provide them jobs, he provide them economic security, he'll lower the prices, and he keeps saying all that has happened. were very clear. The people of US are saying that hasn't happened. They are not happy with him. And I think that is something that the Democrats have to latch on to. But what they don't want is, they don't want Mamdani to create a distraction. And Trump would like to do it because Mamdani is provoking Trump, and Trump is looking for someone to beat up and make that the issue rather than the broader issue of his underperformance. So Mamdani, I think, has to understand that it's all right. Today he was basically appealing to people because he has sold them a certain vision of being able to make, these are freebies. We're used to it. We've seen it happening in Bihar now. First, one side promises 10,000, sends 10,000. Other side says, I'll give you 30,000. So now Mamdani has brought those freebies to New York City. He doesn't have the money for it. And if he starts taxing the rich may migrate, will leave the city. And he has to basically bring up the law and order thing, because that is where his predecessor was successful. So New York is Mamdani. If he handles it well, the Democrats are helped. If he does not handle it well, the Republicans will use it as an example and use it against the Democrats elsewhere. And that's why you didn't find many Democrats endorsing him in advance, because they were watching, and they're keeping their support sort of in the middle. And if you recall, Bill Clinton's success was that he was able to pull the Democrats to a centrist plank. Same with the Labour Party in England, that when they come to a centrist plank, it works. But if you adopt a left-wing plank, a socialist plank, then you're not able to sell it all across the country. So I think that's an agenda. But the important thing is what Trump said. Trump's response is, this loss is due to lockdown. And he thinks that he can blame the Democrats for lockdown. He's meeting the Senate Republicans, I think today or tomorrow, and they have to take a call. But will Trump realize that this is a vote against him? They're already saying that the vote in California it's all illegal, it's not properly done. He can either keep up that thing, which he did last time when he lost the presidential election, or begin to correct things. But at the very least, I think the congressmen and the senators, the Republican congressmen, senators, they are trying to, particularly the congressmen, will have to start modifying their stand and not put a stamp on everything that Trump wants them to do.
All right, let me get in Pramit Pal Chaudhary as well. Pramit, we've seen the government shutdown in the US reach an unprecedented 36 days. To what extent was the government shutdown an issue? Let's speak about Abigail Spanberger. She outperformed recent Democrat candidates. She had a strong win in Virginia. There are a lot of federal workers living in Virginia as well, and this seems to have been contributing to her win. And she's also the first woman from the area to win this election. Could you give us a sense of how much anger there must have been among federal workers because of the shutdown, because their paychecks are not coming in? And do you think that has also contributed to the victory of Democrats, not just in Virginia, but across other races as well?
It contributed, but I don't think it was a major source of the swing. Because if you look at every U.S. special election, which is what they call by-elections or even local elections, that has been held since Trump came to power. There have been 42 such elections, excluding the ones that were just held just now. The Democrats, on average, have been getting a 15% swing in their favor across the country. So that indicates that there has been widespread unhappiness with the Republican position, or at least with the Trump position. The two seem to be feeding into each other. So in many ways, you would have expected this to continue. The shutdown, you're completely right. Virginia, which has an outsized number of U.S. federal government workers, that probably was a major issue. It probably helped Spanberger increase her vote margin. The polling indicates that most Americans, including independent voters, are blaming Trump and the Republicans for the shutdown. And whatever Trump may say, he's simply not getting traction with the argument that the Democrats are responsible for this. And that makes perfect sense. The Republicans control both the houses of Congress. They have a right-wing judiciary and they control the presidency. It's impossible to claim that the Democrats are responsible for the shutdown. So yes, it has influenced, but I don't think that was decisive. I think that probably, we're not certain about Virginia, but I think we would have seen both definitely New Jersey and definitely New York City. New York City, barely 20% of the voters identify as Republicans, would have definitely gone the Democratic side. What Mamdani was and Cuomo was really about was not a Republican-Democrat fight at all. It was about a left-wing populist movement that is attacking the Democratic establishment. The establishment of Clinton, of Cuomo, of Pelosi is now coming under increasing attack from these. So many of them who now identify themselves as Democratic socialists. And that is that's the real change that's taking place in the Democratic Party. We will see a decisive shift for the Democratic Party moving leftward as a consequence of this. If you look at the votes, what Kamala Harris won in New York City, only 60% of her vote went to Mamdani. The rest of it went to Cuomo, a clear indication of the split that we're seeing here. But what really pushed Mamdani over the winning was the youth vote. Over 62% of the youth voted in unusually high numbers in favor of him, basically saying, we do like the Democratic establishment, we want somebody from our generation.
All right, let me go back to Ambassador K.C. Singh. Ambassador K.C. Singh, now, when it comes to what could this election actually indicate about the 2028 presidential election? Who could be the Democrat candidate? Gavin Newsom, you've got Zohran Mamdani, Andrew Cuomo. Whose name do you think comes up, or who could possibly be a likely contender?
Mamdani can't be a candidate. He's born in Uganda. You have to be born in America to be a candidate for presidency. So he's out of that. He can only go up to being a Secretary of State or something, but he can't be president. At the moment, I think Newsom has come up because the vote that he has won, Proposition 50, where he'll be bringing 5 additional seats to counter the redistricting that the Republicans did in Texas. So he's the one who initiated the fight. He put up resistance. He's taking on Trump. So he's shown, he took on ICE, he took on the paramilitary forces being sent to California. So he's directly taken on Trump. And therefore, he's taken a lead, and having won it very, very convincingly, he's got California fully behind him. And it's a large state. We had Nixon from there, we had Reagan from there. So California has provided presidential candidates and successful presidents before. So I think Newsom seems to be ahead at the moment, but a year is a long time. But at the moment, the focus will shift to the midterms. And I think everybody in the Democratic Party would want to at least seize one of the houses. Because if they get the Congress, then at the very least, they can control Trump to a certain extent for the last 2 years of his presidency. Then the focus will shift after that to who are the presidential candidates. But by then, they would have tested out to see what is it that is working with the people. But Mamdani's populist agenda, some of it will have to go into the Democratic agenda, but they have to balance it. It won't be that extremely left of center, ostensibly socialist. It'll have to be more centrist, because they'll have to appeal to the independent voter, which are the ones which are swinging. But an interesting thing from New Jersey and all is the swing back of the Hispanic vote. The black vote and the Hispanic vote, which had shifted to Trump, has shifted back. And I think much of that would be because of what ICE is doing, what Trump's people are doing in picking up people off the street, literally knocking them down, women, children. And I think it's playing very negatively. Now, I don't know whether Trump is going to change it, because Trump is in denial mode. And I don't think he listens to anybody. He doesn't have people around him who have the stature to tell him that he's wrong. But at some stage, if he continues the way he's continuing, as long as Mamdani doesn't get into a fight with him and create a distraction, I think the Democrats are on track. Because historically, whoever wins these 3, which is the New York mayor seat, New Jersey governors, and the Virginia, goes on to win the House. That is what historically over the last 3-4 decades has been seen. So historically, they should be
watch out for.
headed in that direction.
All right, we're going to take a short break, but don't go anywhere. This conversation continues. When we return, we'll talk about the impact of this election on Donald Trump's tariff policies. Welcome back. You're watching CNBC TV 18 Global Eye. The United States top court is hearing arguments on the legality of sweeping tariffs imposed by US President Donald Trump using the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Lower courts have ruled that Trump has in fact exceeded legal bounds by employing IEEPA, a statute meant for national emergencies, to impose broad tariffs on nearly all US trading partners. The challengers, businesses and 12 Democrat-led states, have contended that tariff power lies with Congress under the Constitution, not the president. On the flip side, the administration argues that the tariffs, which have generated approximately $89 billion in revenue between February and September, address national emergencies, including trade imbalances and drug trafficking. Trump has pressed the court, dominated by a 6-3 conservative majority, to uphold his use of IEEPA and maintain his tariff regime. Now, if the Supreme Court invalidates the tariff program, the government could face enormous refund liabilities and the broader question of how the president can act in trade and economic policy without the Congress. The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has also expressed confidence that the U.S. Supreme Court will take the right decision when it comes to U.S. tariffs. Listen in.
I tell you, the White House is always preparing for Plan B. It would be imprudent of the president's advisors not to prepare for such a situation. With that said, we are 100% confident in the president and his team's legal argument in the merits of the law in this case, and we remain optimistic that the Supreme Court is going to do the right thing. The importance of this case cannot be overstated. The president must have the emergency authority to utilize tariffs. Look at what President Trump has been able to do with the leverage and the power of tariffs. He's been able to sign peace deals all over the world and end global conflicts and literally save lives. He's been able to bring in trillions of dollars of investments into our country. In fact, this year alone, we are going to cut the deficit by $600 billion, namely because of the president's effective use of tariffs. And the president strongly believes that economic security is a matter of national security, and tariffs have a lot to do with that. And this case is not just about President Trump. It's about the use of this emergency authorization for tariffs for future presidents and administrations to come. And we're confident and hopeful that the Supreme Court will do the right thing.
All right, let me now go across to Meera Shankar, former ambassador to US, and also Ambassador Casey Singh, who's joining us. Ambassador Meera Shankar, do you think this could now possibly, this election result could lead to a course correction in terms of Donald Trump's tariff strategy, his tariffs against India, for example? Do you think now he would be in the mood to clinch a trade deal?
I hope that the US does seek to clinch a trade deal with India, which is reasonable in accommodating India's concerns. But given that Trump basically projects his policies in terms of his MAGA constituency, I don't see that happening very easily. So it will depend on the midterms. If the Supreme Court rules that President Trump has exceeded his authority and that power of taxation and tariffs lies with the Congress as the Constitution prescribes, it's quite likely that the Republicans will support President Trump's tariffs. and vote them in. But it gives room for maneuver if it actually goes to the Congress in the event of the Supreme Court holding that the president has exceeded his authority. If the midterms next year go in favor of the Democrats and they manage to get one of the houses, then this tariff policy could be up for revision, because then the Democrats would have blocking power. But as I said, it's still very much up in the air because Trump is still basically projecting or formulating his policies with an eye on MAGA support.
All right. My final question to Ambassador K.C. Singh. Ambassador K.C. Singh, how much of this election loss that Donald Trump, the Republicans, have faced in these elections is because of his tariffs? Because at some level, these tariffs are hurting Americans, American businesses as well. So do you think it is a vote against those tariff strategies as well?
No, very clearly, it's causing the inflation in America. He's not accepting it. But the fact that he had to back down when he was dealing with China is an example that he had to do it because of the US farmers. He had to do it because, of course, the rare earths. And he realized that he could not take the fight with China any further. But I don't think he has yet fully is willing to concede publicly that the tariffs are adding up. Some of the price increases till now have been absorbed by the importers or by the manufacturers in America. But if this goes on, then at some stage they'll passing it on to the consumers. It can't carry on the same way. So it has affected the price rise and it will affect it further. That's why, as far as India is concerned, a trade deal is concerned, now that he's got a one-year arrangement with China, I think there's less of a pressure on him to do a deal with India. He would want all the concessions, access to agriculture, dairy products, everything that we want to protect. He may want all that, which would not be easy for India because it has domestic political implications. So the more he gets engrossed in American domestic politics, the better it is for us, because the setback there will distract him. He may leave it to his advisors to finalize it. You cannot have a fight at home, major fight at home, and also a fight abroad. So to that extent, all he's bought is 1 year with China, and they'll be back again to the table another 6, 8, 9 months. By then the midterms come. If he loses the midterms or one of the houses, then in that case, the Chinese will be even in a stronger position. So I'm sure the government of India is playing that accordingly. That's why prime ministers dodged meeting him, because there's no point standing next to him and being embarrassed, because he can say literally anything. So best is leave it to your ministers and advisors to negotiate and play for time.
All right. Thank you very much, Ambassador K.C. Singh, Meera Shankar, and Pramit Pal Chaudhary for joining us on the program. That's it on this edition of Global Eye. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.